Hi, and welcome to Home Events, the channel on history and board games. And today I'm really excited because we're going to talk about series of war games that I love applied to a universe that I also love, because we're going to talk about Battle of Hoth, the Command and Colors adaptation of the game. And to talk about it, I have with me Adrien, who co-designed this entry in the Command and Colors system with Richard Borg. And yeah, that's going to be exciting. First of all, thanks for taking the time and doing this interview in English, because on est tous les deux français, on pourrait faire ça en français, but because we love, oui, ce serait trop facile, but because we love the English speaking audience, because we care so much about them, we're doing it in English. Maybe I wanted for people to know a bit more about yourself. I know that people who are in the business might know you as a publisher, not necessarily as a designer. So maybe some players, maybe most players don't know you. And it's true that Richard Borg rarely shares the design credits on his Command Color system. So it would be great to know a bit more about yourself to start with.
Sure. So I came into the world of board games when I was a teenager, and maybe the first game I did play a lot was Full Metal Planet from Ludo Delia. So maybe the first game I did, played quite a few was not technically a war game, but it was a bit more game about war, let's say. So I played a lot for Full Metal Planet when I was a teenager in the 90s. Then I discovered what we like to call at the time the German style board game with Catan and so on in the late 90s. And then I became an avid fan of board game. I went to Spielessen the first time in 2000, and I started playing a lot, having local clubs of board games. And most of my friends at the time were my board game group when I was in Paris. So I started, playing a lot, buying a lot. When you would go in Spiel in 2000, I would go in a car and just load the trunk with all those German games. And I joined in 2004 the jury of the ASDOR, which was the ASDOR Jeux de l'année at the time. Yeah. So I get to know more people from the industry at the time. And when I was in the jury for 4 years, and I joined Days of Wonder 2008. Which of course I stopped being in the jury at the time, of course. And I was first in charge of sales and marketing in Europe for almost like 6 or 7 years. And when the company was sold to Asmodee, I became head of the studio, so 2014, if my memory is correct. And I became head of the studio for Days of Wonder and worked and developed and marketed all the game we published from that date.
It's funny that you mentioned Full Metal Planet, because I think each time, or most of the time, I meet a French board gamer that is around your age, most of them is like, well, in the 90s, I discovered this game called Full Metal Planet. And it's something that always comes up. And I'm like,
yeah,
because this game, it impacted so many people.
Yeah, because at the time, I think, especially in the French board game landscape, there was not so many games that have that level of graphic, gameplay, game involvement. Whether it was Full Metal Planet or some other game by Ludo Delia, like Formule D at the time was a real hit, So I think that small team of French game enthusiasts created a real thing around their games. Unfortunately, they kind of disappeared in the late 90s, but at the time, you wanted to be like those alternate board game to what Hasbro could be at the time on some other major brand. Those were the small publisher with a true, hobby and enthusiasm around their game.
I think I need to feature it on the show. I need to find either an old copy of it or find a TTS module and play with some old school French players and have the I don't know, le baptême de Full Metal Planet.
So yes, it was the same for sure. Yeah.
that would be nice.
I don't know if that's well known outside of France. It's it was sold. I mean, it did well in France, and
I've never heard.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyone outside of France talking about it, and which I think is a shame, because it looks like it was an amazing game and that was quite pivotal for a lot of people who became designers or people working in the industry. I think it's a hidden gem that we have in our hobby history that is very French, that we probably need to expose a bit more. But yeah, you said, so you started working at Days of Wonder, then you took the head of the studio. As wargamers, we know Days of Wonder because they published Memoir 44, which is, for us, one of the best entry points into the wargaming universe. And with Memoir 44, you have all the expansions behind it. And Richard Borg is one of our I don't know how to say, one of our patron saints. It's like,
Yeah.
like when you're a wargamer, like Richard Borg is one of the greats.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
And I was wondering, so what was your exposure to wargaming? Did you play wargame first of all, and what's your relationship with the Memoir series?
I don't play wargame, and to some extent, Memoir 44 is my only little touch into the board game world. I know there's people that say Memoir 44 is not a wargame. Some says it's a wargame, says it's a war tour, kind of a hybrid between board game and wargame. I'm not gonna talk about like is it or is it not. But I played Memoir 44 before I joined. So I played Memoir 44 very casual. And it's also the game I played when I met my wife. So I was in a board game convention, and because I wanted to play only games with her, I was trying to find like 2 players games, that I can play with her. And so I played a lot of Memoir 44 with her during the weekend. And I didn't play in any tournament or such at the time, but it's a game I did play in the 2000s when the games came out quite a lot. I liked, for me, the simplicity of it, the fact that in a half an hour, 45 minutes, you had a real, wargaming experience. I like the fact it has nice beats. I like games that have no nice components where the actual units are represented by miniature. So I like that 3D aspect of the game. I like the fact it's about World War II, where it's not a simulation, but a lot of the scenario, all the scenarios that the author published are based on actual battles. And I like the fact that the game will intro historical facts, historical element before you jump in a scenario. I like that because I'm not like a World War II, I'm not an expert, but it's a part of history that I think is very important, and it's a good thing to remember these events. And I always liked all those things. I think it's very it give you a lot of things to think about. So I did play a lot Memoir 44, and when I joined with Days of Honor, it was a game that was already well developed. I helped develop it, and when I was head of the studio, one of my first big thing I worked on was the new version of the Pack, the new flight plan. So it's a game that has a very specific place in my game history or in my heart, in a way.
Recently, Days of Wonder decided to publish a new version of Memoir 44, and I was wondering, before we talk about the Star Wars thing that we're here to talk about, what was the idea behind this new version of Memoir 44?
We always try to design at Days of Wonder games that will stand the test of time. So we try to have a good quality component, nice art, so our games are not outdated in terms of graphic gameplay in the past 5, 10 or 15 years. That being said, I think Memoir 44 was, with Ticket to Ride, one of the first games we published, and we're still being sold a couple of years ago. So we thought both of them need maybe a refresh, in a sense that when you see other games, the graphic level, gameplay level, or rules, explaining level went up. So we wanted that our game that were like 2 decades or almost, at the time, get a new version to look fresher, and especially in the case of Memoir 44, where we had a lot of expansion or a lot of FAQ that introduced new rule points or would make some rule points clearer and more. That we wanted to have like those changes to reflect in the base rules, of the game. So we say, let's make a new version that change what is necessary. So the rule layout, maybe the minis need to be updated because the molds were also very old and the sculpt was very old on the minis themselves. Add a few things, like we add the activation tokens that you can use to mark the troop, the units that have been activated. So I think it was time to make a version that look a bit newer on that, without, of course, changing the core of the game, which is the gameplay and the compatibility with expansion that has been published and that we want to publish after.
So you're gonna republish all of the expansions with that refreshed version?
Yeah. We want to at least to rework on the main, what we call the main expansion, the one that contains unit, what we call the army pack in a way. So the Mediterranean Theater or the Pacific Front, all these one that we look forward to refresh as well.
And I guess for the people who have the not main expansions, so the one that come in Ziplocs like Kelkigol and stuff like this, the one that are a bit more niche, I guess they can still use it with the new version of Memoir 44. So all this is still,
Sure. You can. Everything is still compatible. Well, the meaning are not exactly the same, but the color is the same, So if you mix an old box and a new box, it won't be a one pair one, exactly the same, but it's still they have the troop have the same pose, the armor are based on the same tanks, so the same actual model, so it's compatible from with everything. I mean, if you own like everything Memoir 44 10.2, whether you want the new version or not is really up to you. You there's nothing in it, that you definitely need. If you need a fresher version, if you need, those activation token, if you like the new minis, go for it. But we didn't force people to say, I buy, like 400 or 500 dollar of Memoir 44. I need to rebuy everything. That's not what we want to do.
Well, which makes sense. I like this idea of refreshing the game for a new generation of players to discover the commands and color system, which I think Memoir 44 is one of the best way to get into, because out of all the iterations, it's probably the easiest one. Well, I do think that Battle of Hoth is actually quite simple, and that was also a very, very nice surprise. And I think that's a good segue to Battle of Hoth. So there were some attempts to transfer the command and color systems into fantasy. So there was Battlelore first and second edition. I think they did an edition that was it themed around Game of Thrones? I don't remember.
Yeah, when the game was the founder, it moved to a fantasy flight game before 2010, something like this. And they did second edition, and they did a Westeros version called Battle for Westeros, I think.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. And then there was this Red Alert, Command and Colors Red Alert that Richard Borg did with spaceships.
I played that recently, and it's a great version, I think.
It does some interesting things, and now there's Battle of Hoth, so IP based in the Star Wars universe. For people who don't know, it's based on the battle at the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back. Amazing battle, amazing movie. My brother and I used to know the dialogues by heart. Like, we would put the VHS in, and we were just like saying the lines. So big strong emotional tie to this.
We've been to the same place.
Yeah. And so I was super excited when this was announced. I received the box, and by the way, I want to thank you for sending over a box. And I was looking through the material and everything, and I was very pleasantly surprised, because it looks like you just retained the core of the system, and the things that you added don't necessarily add rules. I think that the refinement comes from those character cards, and this is just the card. Like, you don't need to learn anything. It's just that it adds something new in the deck.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know a bit more about what was your ambition with Battle of Hoth in terms of design.
One thing I did value a lot in Memoir 44 and Command and Color, besides the thematic that you have in Memoir 44 that we just talked a bit before, is the simplicity and the elegance of the system. I think this Command and Color system by Richard Borg is just amazing. It's very simple. It's based on a few components that are basically, card, dice, and units. And it's like, riding a bicycle. Once you learn it, you'll never forget it. Okay, you won't remember exactly what terrain is or something like this, but the core mechanism of playing a card, activating units, choosing your target, rolling your dice, and drawing a new card is very simple, And I love that. We had Memoir 44, and at some point it was during COVID time, so 5 years back, 6 years back. And I was starting playing Memoir 44 with my son. And because Memoir 44 has some scenarios that are a bit longer, and there's some more, I think, concept that is not so easy to catch for a younger one. Like, what is war exactly? Like, what's the allies? What are the axes? All this kind of stuff that people, before 10 are not very, very used to. I think, maybe we can, work on a version that will be simpler to grasp, and also with a theme that young kids could be involved a bit more. So we are playing one of the scenarios with my son. I can't remember, it was Pegasus Bridge, but one of the first scenario. And already in that playing that scenario, there was some cards, that was a bit hard to understand. Like there's a basic card, the flank card, that are easy to do, and some tactic cards are easy to do, but some others are a bit more difficult to understand. So I tell my son, okay, let's remove all the men of the gray card, and let's say now your tank are at my tank are slow speeders, and what you try to do is just destroy my shield generator, because then I could send to my son this, oh, we're in Star Wars, we are in the Emperor Strike Back, and you have one thing to do is destroying my ship generator. So it became very clear to him what his objective was, rather than winning medals. So we kind of did the first playtest with just, using Memoir 44 as a proxy and playing like a fake, Star Wars scenario. And it was a lot of fun. And immediately he grasped it. So I said, yeah, that's probably a good idea to say, let's take that magnificent game system, that is also a proven system because there was so many versions made and it worked and that people like, and do another version that maybe is a little bit simpler with a theme that also simplifies the understanding of what you do. When you play Star Wars, everybody knows who the rebel are, who the Empire is. Everybody knows a hat is big and hard to kill. So there's a lot of stuff that implied by the IP itself that makes the game easier to understand. So that was a bit the starting of that decision and that travel, that journey, I must say.
I think for grog nerds, they already think that Commands and Colors is easy enough, but I don't think I think they have a skewed perception of what complexity is because of the games that they play, and they don't realize that sometimes, things can be like overwhelming and they pile up. And I think a good example of that is I love Commands and Colors Napoleonics, for example. I think it's a great system and everything, but there is a lot of things to track, like when you form square, what happens, what's the consequence. There are a lot of different unit types, there are a lot of different terrains, and yes, it's probably simpler than a more complex Napoleonic tactical system, but it is still quite involved, and it's not really an entry-level game. And I think that this idea that you can go there step by step and it could be simpler and still retain its depth and its elegance and its interest is really, really cool. And
you have always a fake perception of what you think is easy and hard, because everybody is ego-centered. So the world's around you. So what I think is hard for everybody, and vice versa. So you're right. It's something, and it's important to think a bit differently. And one of the good things is that, so I knew Richard from a long time, and when we had this idea of Battle of Hoth, me being a publisher, there was a lot of thought initially on the product side of it. I don't say product as a bad one. I say product in the sense that because we already were in a publisher ecosystem, it was easier for us to not only work on the gameplay, but how the game will look and how much the game will retail, and what we could include or not in the game. So very early on in the working on the game system, on the gameplay, we kept in mind that we wanted the games that could be played by different generations. When I was a kid and I was playing Full Metal Planet, I could only play with my friends. I was already a fan of Star Wars at the time, and I had in mind that sometime I would love a game that's a Star Wars that could play with my father. And my parents were not, huge board gamer. So I said, I need a simple game that I can set up and play with my parents every way. And I could not get that, at the time. And now that, I'm a father myself, I said, hey, I want to replicate this. So as a father, is there a game that I could, set up easily that is half an hour that can play with my kids? Very early on, the decision to make it a bit simpler and maybe with less component and with smaller board and less expensive was it's affordable, it's setup and gameplay is going to be 30 minutes, so it's something that you should not, need to plan a game to play it. You could play that, it's dinner in 45 minutes, let's play a game before dinner. And I wanted that, something very easy to set up, something that there's no excuse to say no. Right.
I think that's great. This idea of we need it to be a fluid intergenerational thing, which I think is great, and I think even resonates with me. I don't have kids, but when I saw that the game was released and you told me that you're going to send me a box, with my brother and two nieces, we have our Signal chat, and we started talking about the game, and we already have planned like a campaign for Christmas when they're coming over, and we're arguing about what were going to be the sides because we're going to play 2 against 2 and everything. And it was really like this, like it really felt like it was a game that we were excited to play all together and already get involved in the campaign, and started looking at, how does it work? What are the rules? And
I think one of the best things is when I see testimonies online of people playing with their kids. It's make me so proud in a way that because that's why we wanted that game. So I'm so happy that I see people online. Oh, I play with my son or my daughter. We had a blast, and we went on that scenario. They beat me, and so on. So that's for me. That's really something I love. Giving this kind of feedback of the game, like you say, being intergenerational.
Normally, every Christmas we record a couple of reviews. I'm pretty confident that we'll probably have a review of Battle of Hoth with the girls. So I'll send you the link once it's done, so you can be. It will be your Christmas present. My next question is, so you started as a almost dinner table project, playing with your son, coming up with some ideas, and then you realized there was a potential, and you saw it as a product. And I think it's not a bad word. I mean, games are products, and I think we need to think about them this way, in a way. After that, what was the relationship with Richard when you decided to make it an actual game? How involved was he in the design process? What was your working relationship in making the game a finalized product?
The first thing I did, because I wanted that we were pretty safe on knowing we could, reach an actual release at the end, is making sure, Star Wars was okay with it. We have at Asmodee, we are lucky to have access to the Star Wars IP, and Asmodee has released a lot of games based on that. So the first thing was basically to pitch the concept to Disney or Lucasfilm. So making some document to explain roughly the gameplay, the price it could be, all these kind of details. So that was the really first thing after thinking of the idea itself, was to make sure we can succeed with that, and it was done very, very easily in some way. So we started working with Richard. Richard being in the US, us being Europe, we for long time we could not really play together. So we did a big part of the design in Europe, in the studio, which means thinking about the units, then thinking about the scenario, all those core elements. Then we played. I met Richard. I was meeting Richard every year at Gen Con. Basically, it was probably the first year after we had this idea and discussion. We met at the Gen Con. We had a couple of games together, and quickly in 1 hour, not 1 hour, but one afternoon session, I think the base mechanics were done. We were okay on the unit type, the unit characteristics, the number of cards in each deck. We also agreed very early on what make that game different. And you mentioned the leaders, but the core thing we worked on is asymmetry. Memoir 44 and a lot of command and colors are very symmetric, because it's a way to give most chances both sides. I wanted that playing the Rebellion was very different than playing the Empire. When you play the Empire, you have to feel the fact that you are this big war machine. You feel very safe. You rely on your unit, on the fact that you have a lot of troops. And when you want to play the Rebellion, you are the challenger here, right? It's going to be hard for you. You're going to fight for freedom. Okay, so and you need to feel that when you start with the Rebellion, you go like, ooh, those big machines working toward me. That's going to be hard to kill them. So not only the units need to be much more different than in any command and color. We want to make sure that the doesn't play the same as snow speeders. One is fast and have punch, power at close combat. One is very slow, but it's a very turret on legs. And that's where also we decided to split the deck. One of the core idea in Memoir 44 and command and color is that you draw from a command deck, okay? Which means that everything I don't get, you get it. It's also balanced. If I get more right flank, you're gonna go more left flank, which is gonna be, my right flank as well. So we say let's simplify this a bit and just make us 2 decks. So we could also have cards that are more thematic, making sure that we have a big, powerful card for the Empire. The Rebel doesn't get the same on the other side. So it helps us making this game a bit more asymmetric. So the first thing we did with Richard is working on asymmetry. So not only the deck are asymmetric, the unit are asymmetric, and of course, scenario will give you like different starting position.
Yeah, and it's true that compared to the other entries in the system, it is highly asymmetric. As you said, splitting the decks, but also the units feel very different. We're talking about the AT-AT, and it's true that to destroy them, you need to get a hit, then you need to reroll, there is a lot of small stuff. It's still very easy, and I think if you've never played a Command and Colors game is going to be super easy to get. It might be even harder, I would say. When I was reading it, I was like, it might be even harder for me that played a lot of Commands and Colors before, because of this asymmetry. It feels like it's slightly counterintuitive to everything that I'm used to. But in the end, I think it's for people who get into the system, it might be even easier. But yeah, that's quite something. So usually the challenge that you have when you're designing one-on-one asymmetric games is balance, because when you have asymmetry and you have 3 or 4 players, you can feel like the balance can come from the interplayer relationship. Sure. Someone is going down, someone is going up, everyone is fighting the one at the top, no one cares about the one at the bottom, and you have a natural equilibrium that can come up. When it's one-on-one, you don't have this. It's cutthroat. It's just there is nothing to balance it. What was the process to make sure that even though there was this strong asymmetry, you had the feel that everyone had a path to victory for its scenario?
So one thing that I think drive the design a lot in Battle of Hoth, I want it to be cinematic. Okay, I think that you want Memoir 44 or Napoleon X to feel historic. I want it Battle of Hoth to feel cinematic, like you in the movie. So what we try to do in Battle of Hoth is not actually, try to replicate a conflict between two armies. Is we want you to be in the movie. Okay, so it's drive us a lot because we want it not only asymmetry, because we want it that when you're in one side, you feel the other side have like hidden features a bit, like hidden ways to play. But we also want that things can happen. There's some cards in Battle of Hoth that feel very powerful, but they're here to do this kind of change. Say, oh, I'm gonna lose. Then something happened, a bad roll happened, or you get to draw a good card, and so the game feels cinematic. They're like big epic moments in every game, and I'm meaning that I was mentioning that because I think we wanted the game to be well balanced, but for us it feel okay if we had one side that feel the game unbalanced. I think it was okay for the rebel sometimes to feel, oh, I'm overwhelmed. But what we did, and if you look close by the number, you will see that Empire units are stronger than rebel unit in some points. So what we did, we gave the rebel maybe better cards. So if you look at the vanilla rebel deck versus the Empire deck, the rebel deck going to give you like more dice, for instance. Okay, so where the Empire have this big war machine where everything is strong and advanced, in a very steady and easy way, wanted the rebel to be very punchy. The snow speeder, are the unit that move a lot, and you can bring a snow speeder, in close combat with an add to the good card. You can roll 5 dice, which the Empire really can't do. So the way we did the balance was telling the people, if you are the Empire, you should have confidence on your side, okay? But if you are the rebel, you may, be the tactic guy. Go for the kill, go for the
seize opportunity. Roll. Yeah,
exactly. That's what the rebel do in the movie.
Yeah,
they start the battle and they lose the battle at the end, right? Battle of Hoth is the Empire victory. But if you look, they scramble the snow speeder, and they start. They're too big. Or laser won't go through or whatever. But then they still go and they find a way. They launch the tow cable, So it's always this kind of, hey, I'm a rebel. I'm a smart guy. I'm going to find, like a breach, in your defense and exploit it. So that's how you should play the rebel in Battle of Hoth.
One thing that I was really happy to see also in the box is traditionally Commands and Color boxes come with a lot of scenarios, which this box also contains. You have a scenario booklet with, you have a lot of different types of a situation that you can play, but it comes also with those 2 leaflets that are campaigns. And I was really excited to see this because I think playing Command and Color games as a campaign is also something that is really exciting. And I feel like you did something quite interesting. It's very simple, but you have this system where you play a scenario, then it branches out depending on the outcome, and it succeeds like this. What was the design process behind this?
So the first idea was, because we are making this game a bit simpler and shorter, and the board is smaller, so we designed the game to be shorter. We wanted to be sure also that player that could jump into Battle of Hoth could also find that extra layer, so not to make the game much more complex, but also longer. Okay, and I think that we did a few tests with campaign for Memoir 44, a few releases, and the campaign books are amazing. But like playing a Memoir 44 campaign is probably going to be like 5 or 6 hours, okay? And I want it in the same way that you could play that extra longer game, so that campaign game, in a game night. Okay, so we're not gonna be half an hour like a single scenario, but the idea is that okay, no, I'm in a friend. It's like past dinner, we have our traditional gaming evening. Can we play Battle of Hoth for like 3 hours and have something that is linked together that matters? And this idea was a bit, just borrow to your own, adventure book, just to make something where we have each small leaf set. Initially it was cards, so you had like an extra deck of cards, that has 8 cards, and you read the first card, and they say if you win, go to card, A3, and you look at the card. We made it a leaflet because it's more convenient, I think, to use when you play. But the idea is to put a bit more, slightly bit more narrative into it. So you are in charge, you're the commander in charge of the battle, and you are given given order by your hierarchy. And we wanted something that player, a bit more involved. Like every choice I'm going to do, every victory or defeat will matter in what happened next. A bit like, when you play a computer game or computer war game, you have like the free-for-all mode or the skirmish mode, and then you have the campaign. So we wanted something like this where you could spend a bit more time, having something with a real start and the conclusion. I love the fact that the campaign has a conclusion. Like when you win or when you lose, you have a hollow message from command that say bravo or not. So I want like you end a video game or you end something. We have like this message. Oh, congratulations, General! You done wonders for us and such. We like to introduce all those small concepts. There's secondary objective. So if you feel you're kind of losing, you can still try to go for a secondary objective that will give you a little bonus for the next game. So it gives you a bit more, right? So we loved it. So the design process was initially the first campaign was just we had I think only 7 scenarios when we started working on the game. And we had 7 scenarios for a long time. So the first campaign we used only those 7 scenarios. And because we had those 7 scenarios, we easily, were able to make that kind of trees like you mentioned, that one loss or victory branches and drive you to another one. So it was very easy to do like a tree like this or inverted trees. It was very simple. It's hidden you look at the campaign at the leaflet, but you understood. But we had like a PowerPoint with the actual branches that say, oh, if the emperor wins, you got there. If you get there, you're gonna play that scenario and so on. So that was a very fun part to design with Richard, and it was very interesting because we had very big experience on that. Every time we played, it was different outcome. So it was very fun.
I haven't played my first campaign. I'm gonna play it soon with a friend here before playing with the nieces. But yeah, it looks like it's an exciting experience.
And in terms of component, if you look at it, it had a ton of gameplay value.
Yeah, with just a leaflet.
Exactly, yeah. Just a leaflet and a few cards. So I think it's a very effective way, to give more depth to the game, while not, making the product much more bigger and more expensive.
I'm going to talk maybe a bit more on about the commercial side now, because when the game landed here in Chartres in my local game shop, they ordered quite a few. And I think in a week, everything was sold. And they were surprised. Yeah, and it got out of stock pretty fast. And now they're waiting for resupplies from Days of Wonder. And when I see this, it looks like it was maybe potentially even a bigger success than you expected. And I was wondering, was it more successful than you expected, or was it more or less what you were hoping for?
It's a tricky one, because it's really, when you work on a game, whatever the game, it's very hard to gauge, how it's going to work, because you as a designer and as a publisher, and even more when you're both, you are so much involved in those design, those projects, that you're always going for, oh, it's going to be fun, people are going to love it, because I love it, or you go to, oh, people are going to hate it because they're going to say it is bad because this. So you spend your time, say, oh, it's going to be good, it's going to be bad. So having an idea of the success is very tricky. You get people to say, oh, it's fantastic, your friends get to play, the distribution company get to play with you. So you get some hints, but in the end, you're always happy when there's success, and you're always sad when it's not. But it's never a guarantee, and it's very hard, probably on a publishing and distribution standpoint, to predict the volume you're going to sell. You know, it's and you got everything around you, the economics. You know, is it going to be a game in the same price range, going to be released at the same time? You know, what's going to be the ability for shops to order enough? Is it your first, you know, we did the first release and demo at Gen Con in the US. Is it going to be a success? You know, are people going to talk after games? You know, so there's a lot of little things that, you know, going to fit together at the release, which going to make it a success or not, even despite all the work and the effort you put into such a game. I loved, you know, working on that with Richard. It was an amazing project and an amazing time, you know, working on that. I'm very proud of the result, you know, in terms of the gameplay we designed, the fact that, like you say, we took a lot of bits from Command & Color and we tweak it so it's different enough. But if you're familiar with Command & Color, you'll be in a place that you know. I'm super happy we can have the game that fit in a 50 euro box, you know, with the minis are great, you know, the components are good. We could have, you know, those boxes where you could fit all your minis, your storage boxes inside. The card holders, you know, are nice as well. So I'm happy with how the game looks. You know, I think it's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic product again, not a bad word, because I think it comes with a very fair price. Just a small note, which I funny. I made the box. It's the first time, not the first time, but it's only a rare occasion that we release a rectangle box. You know, we have all our games square, and I wanted a box that says to people, "I'm a board game." You know, when I was a kid, our box was rectangle. There's no game that was square. Okay, like Ravensburger games or Hasbro games. You know, they're all Ludo Delir games were big rectangle box. You know, so I wanted a box that say, "I'm a board game." So I like that format. I like the box. It has this big, you know, scene on the cover, which also feels very cinematic. So we are very satisfied, and it seems to be a good success. Like you said, it was sold out in France pretty quick, and I hope it continues.
It looks like it was like there was a small logo on the box, Galactic Battles, and of course it raised some eyebrows, and especially for me, I was like, hey, more IPs coming up, and I was like, because I mean there is other sci-fi IPs that I'm excited about, and I'm like, I would like to.
Yeah, Galactic Battles.
What's coming up? Yeah,
it's more. It's going to be more attached to that Star Wars IP. Okay, if we get to do some other IP, it might be not be Galactic Battle, because what I want with that Galactic Battle logo, it says that it's an entry point in that Star Wars, you know, Command & Color system. It's also a guarantee of compatibility and think that, okay, if you get to play, you know, at the Battle of Naboo or Battle of Scarif or Battle of name, you know, the place or the planet, you know, scale going to be the same, X size going to be the same. And if we can't mix, you know, things that are not from the same time period in Star Wars in official scenarios, well, play your choice, you know, and then people will be able to do whatever and create the battle they want.
Do you have any idea, or are you able to talk about what could be the next game?
Because we have a lot of ideas. So ideas we have, okay. It's more now in discussion with the licensor, okay, because everything will need to go through Disney and Lucasfilm, you know, again on any new boxes. So it's more a discussion between them and us what we think the best for the sequel. So ideas we have now, multiple ideas. What we haven't is made a choice on what next exactly.
Okay, well, I hope that you'll come back when you know more to do a bit of a preview. That would be fun. There is one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because when this box was released, it reminded me that in my collection I had something a bit unique, and I don't know if you've played this. It's a 1988 game by West End Games. It's still in shrink, which is
that's collector.
Yeah, and I was actually planning on doing an unboxing of this and maybe have a play afterwards. And I think that now that your game is out, it would be a perfect timing. Which I think would have been the game that you should have played with your father back then. I mean, maybe
it's probably. So I did play a lot by West End Games of the RPG, you know, Star Wars RPG at the time. I haven't played this one. I haven't played Battle of Hoth. It's this one's probably a bit more wargaming, you know, than Battle of Hoth, you know, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is, but it looks like it was really an entry level kind of game.
Yeah.
And if you're up for it, I'm trying to see. I'm hurting the box.
No,
I'm making
keep
all the
it
collectors cringe right now. Yeah. What did he do? No, it's fine. It's fine. It's safe.
Yeah.
But what we could do, if you want, is if I find a TTS module or something like this, we could have a go at it. And I
Sure,
think people, it would be really fun to have you
I'd
play
be
this
happy because
1988 gem of
yes, there
a
was a lot
game.
of people when the game was released. I saw a lot of people making comparison or people, opening this game again if it was in their collection and try to see, can I, use the minis in one of the other. And so I think that's where also you touch into nostalgia. I think Star Wars and Hoth as a battle has a very nostalgic feeling. One thing I had when I was a kid, had a book from ILM, the special effect company that worked with Lucas, was created by Lucas at the time, and I had a book that was talking about ILM, way of working on movie. And one of the photo picture that was in that book and that drive me crazy as a kid is Phil Tippett, who was the stop and go animator that made all the AT-AT moving in the snow. And you will see that guy, entering by a trap door, on the miniature set, where they're shooting with a camera and moving, the AT&T part,
slowly,
leg by leg. Yeah. And you were like, and the caption was like, it was like half an hour and 1 hour to like
1 second
of a second frame.
Oh yeah.
I was like, and so everything was like a lot of me, was I was a kid who was also defined by that, and I wanted to be at some point. I envisioned having like a special effect, a job in that sector. Every time, it's like this kind of game, this kind of project ties to what how do you learn to play game, what you did at some point. So there's a lot of nostalgia on that, and I spent quite some time researching because I did also some of the minis where I did design, like all the everything that's non-human. Basically, I did design myself, and it was the first time I was designing 3D miniature. So like this, I did a lot of research on how the AT-AT was moving and so on. So, and I was like, I need to find that guy again and see like, still of the movie. So we are watching the movie, pausing, when was still the AT-AT working to see which leg move after which leg to make sure that the pose of the mini was correct. I think, when you're a fan of something, you want what you work on is to be spot on and be the best as you can.